Welcome to Chicago Counterpoint Television, brought to you by the Fatherhood Educational Institute. It's fantastic to be here another Monday evening, bringing truth, justice, fathers' rights, children's rights, the importance of family, and all other rights that everybody in our community should have an entitlement to. Justice should not be a luxury. Unfortunately, justice is not always available to everybody. It should be. Justice should not be a luxury only the rich can afford. Before we start our program today, if anybody wants any information on the Fatherhood Educational Institute, you could always call 312-795-9060. You can also take a look at the Fatherhood Educational Institute's website. There's a little snapshot of it. You can see Congressman Danny Davis, top left-hand corner. That's fatherhood-edu.com, fatherhood-edu.com. You can always follow the Fatherhood Educational Institute on its Twitter account at fatherhood-edu, and I'll show you that on your screen right there, at Fatherhood EDU. That's the Fatherhood Educational Institute's Twitter. And also, the Fatherhood Educational Institute has a Facebook, and it's right on your TV screen, Fatherhood Educational Institute. That's Fatherhood Educational Institute. Great Facebook. It's fantastic. And also, the guest we have today, Les Poole, was in Chicago Business Journal, which is an excellent publication, which announced his appearance on the show. And there you could see the news item talking about attorney Les Poole appearing on the show. And now you have Les Poole there. Welcome, Les Poole.
Good to be here, Mr. Levin. Real enjoyable to be here for the callers and to do what we can to help fathers.
Yeah, Les just won a fantastic victory. His client, a dad, was falsely accused of child abuse, and he exonerated his client. He won in court, but his client not only didn't go to prison for a crime he didn't commit, but the mother who falsely accused him was locked up. The good news is his father doesn't have to worry about going to jail because of any false abuse allegations, and most importantly, his little daughter is safe. Caller, you're on the air with Les Fierce Litigator, Mr. Fiercehood. Battlefield Les Poole. He's ready here to fight for you. Pop. So go ahead. Give us your question.
My question. I have a friend. He couldn't call in. His name's Carson, and he works some seasonal jobs. And last year he made good money, but this year he's made a lot less money, but his child support hasn't gone down. And I'm wondering, can he do anything about that? Because it looks like it's a good percentage of his income, and he's just not making the dough to pay his child support.
Well, I'll let attorney Les Poole handle that.
Absolutely. Child support is modifiable at any time with a change in circumstances. As a matter of fact, I'd advise him not to sit on it because the longer the order continues to run in the format that it's at, he's just building up more to rearage. He needs to get in there, get proper counseling, and get that modified to be in tune with what his income is right now. Absolutely, he could do something, but he needs to do it sooner than later.
And thank you, caller. And caller, the Fatherhood Educational Institute, they have these fantastic brochures concerning the Fatherhood Educational Institute, and if you open it up, there's a lot of good snapshot summary information on the Fatherhood Educational Institute, and these are absolutely free. You can contact the Fatherhood Educational Institute, 312-795-9060, 312-795-9060. They're all free to everyone. Caller, you're on the air, Attorney Jeff Leving and Attorney Les Poole, a fierce litigator. Honored to have him here, donating his time to the community this evening. You're on the air.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can speak up just a little bit.
Yes, okay. I have a question. I have a child, and the child was taken out of state by the mother, and I got a court order saying the child should come back. and I went out of state. It was to Wisconsin. And the Wisconsin deputies out there, the sheriff's deputies, won't help me bring the child back. What can I do?
Okay, you have because there is something, a Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction Act. Is the order was entered in Illinois?
Yes.
And and you have the law enforcement authorities in Wisconsin are not helping you.
That's right.
Okay, since you have a valid Illinois order, there's a reciprocal compact between states. What happens is, or what you should do is register that judgment in the state of Wisconsin, the Illinois judgment, and then it would be enforceable by Wisconsin law enforcement, just like if it would be a Wisconsin order. You need to get on that right away.
Okay, thank
Okay, thank you. And caller, if you need any further information, take a look at the Fatherhood Educational Institute's website, fatherhood-edu.org. Next caller, welcome to the show. This is Attorney Jeff Leving, and we have Les Poole here, a real legal eagle, to help you. What can he do for you?
My ex-girlfriend is no longer letting me see my son.
Could you speak up a little bit higher?
Yes, my ex-girlfriend found out I was seeing someone else, and now she won't let me see my son anymore. Is there anything I can do to get him back and to see him again on a regular basis?
Okay, as I understood your question is that your ex-girlfriend won't let you see your son anymore, and I'd like to ask you some questions. Is there any orders in effect? Has anything been filed at this point?
No, we've been doing everything by agreement so far.
Okay, what you need to do is establish your rights legally. You need to file a petition for paternity, and that's going to be based on one of two pieces of evidence, either a VAP, a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity that would have been signed at the hospital, or alternatively, if there isn't one, then the court would order a DNA test. Establish yourself as a father legally, and once you do that, then the issues would come into play as custody, or what's now known as allocation of parental rights and responsibilities, and a visitation schedule. You can clearly establish and enforce your rights under Illinois law. You just have to take the steps as the father to get this in front of a judge and get court orders appropriately. Then you should be entitled to the same rights as mom. You just need to take the step to enforce your rights.
Okay, well, thank you, caller. We have another caller we have to get to now. New caller, you're on the line. This is Attorney Jeff Leving. My guest, Attorney Les Poole, a fierce litigator. What can he do for you? You're on the air.
Mr. Poole and Mr. Leving. Hello, Mr. Poole, Mr. Leving. I'm honored to be able to ask you a very important question. As a matter of fact, I've read 3 of your books, Mr. Leving, and I've really learned a lot about what goes on with this litigation in this family law arena. And your firm has done some amazing work, I tell you. My question is, my ex-wife is really turning my 2 children against me. I mean, there's this whole term called alienation, parental alienation maybe, and I'm trying to understand what we could do about this. I'm really, this is very bad. My kids are very upset. They're very depressed. They're not doing well in school. I'm worried they're going to start acting out, do some bad things like your commercial clearly suggests what will happen in these situations. What should I do in this situation?
Well, Les Poole, you're the legal eagle. You're the legal commentator for this evening. So please help this man.
As I understand it, Calder, I'm a little bit stuffed up today, and you were talking kind of faint, but as I understand it, your ex is interfering with your relationship with the kids, and she's conditioned them against you. Is that my understanding?
She's a parental alienator, and it's terrible, terrible,
Really
parental
bad.
alienator. And there are very few psychologists that I think really understand parental alienation. Dr. Richard Gardner, I worked with him years ago, who unfortunately passed away. And there's another doctor who is brilliant, Dr. Childs, who understands parental alienation. But most psychologists, unfortunately, don't. But it's really important because parental alienation can destroy children, it can tear them apart emotionally, it can destroy their relationships with their fathers. It's really, really bad. And sometimes you need to litigate, you need to get into court. I always like to use honey before vinegar. I love using honey before vinegar, but if it doesn't work, you're going to have to go into court and fight like heck to protect yourself, your father's rights, and your children's rights. This is really, really important. And if you need more information, because we do have another caller on the line, take a look at the Fatherhood Educational Institute's website, fatherhood-edu.org. Now, this is our last show for the season, unfortunately, and we're getting lots of callers, and we're trying to get them all on the air. And we're going to try and do that now. But we will be back. But for the season, it's the last show. Caller, you're on the air, Attorney Jeffrey Leving, and we have Les Poole here, a fierce litigator. What can we do for you?
My question is, my friend's grandson has not seen his father in, I don't know, like 3 months. And first it was, that he was busy with this and that, and now the mom is saying, well, he doesn't want to see the dad. And is there, so he's only 15, he's it's 15, and is there anything that my friend's son can do?
Now, is it that the father's not seeing the child, or is it the grandfather?
No, it's the father is not, but that it's because the mother is basically not following the visitation schedule.
Oh, this is terrible, terrible.
As a matter of fact, there's a new statute that that's come into being in Illinois. In the old days, you had to bring a rule to show cause. Now there's a 607.5, which is enforcement of parental rights. It sounds like you have an order already. If that's in fact the case, under that new statutory provision, the remedy can be that this person that's violating, the mother that's violating those rights or interfering with the rights, can be fined, jailed, makeup rights can be ordered, fees as far as the cost of bringing the action. There's a lot of remedies that can be done. The statute is actually geared towards that particular issue because it was so prevalent. Another thing is Mr. Leving was instrumental for the last 3 years. There's a criminal statute in place in the state of Illinois that he pushed through the legislature that there may also be a violation of, that it can be enforced criminally also. So that's something that you should definitely follow up on.
If this woman is violating a court order, and if she's found in contempt of court, she could end up in jail. I always like to try and negotiate, but if this woman is violating a court order, she's trying to destroy this dad's relationship with his child, and what she's doing is terrible and hurting the dad, hurting the child, maybe a few nights in Cook County Jail would wake her up. 312-795-9060, and I'll be glad to send you some free newsletters from the Fatherhood Educational Institute. Anybody can have them. They're free. Learn your rights. Education is critical. Next caller, you're on the air. Attorney Jeffrey Leving, and I'm here with Les Poole, fierce litigator, and he was in the Chicago Business Journal today. There's a copy of the article, and there's the firm's website. And here's Les Poole. What can he do for you? You're on the air.
Hi, gentlemen. I've heard a lot about you and just thought maybe I could get a little bit of advice. My brother lost his job. He has 4 kids, and he can't afford to pay the child support to his ex-wife right now. And she has a very good job, and he's worried because he can't even pay his rent. So I'm just wondering if there's some kind of action he can take.
Yeah, absolutely. There should be a motion that's brought to modify the support. And if discovery is properly utilized, it's not only a question of what he's making or the change in his income, which would be taken into consideration. From what I understand, you said that she has alternate sources of funds. That should also be taken into consideration. So the actual expenses should be looked at, not just the question of his income. But clearly, if he's had a reduction or a setback like that, he needs to survive, and it should be in the overall balance. And additionally, I just want to mention, because it's timely, as of the July 1st, there's going to be an additional formula that goes into play with regard to the calculations of child support in the state. But absolutely, rather than him just sitting on his hands and letting these orders run, which is going to put him farther and farther underground as far as his financial viability. Needs to get and do something right away. So absolutely, there can be something done in those circumstances.
Okay, thank you for calling. I'm trying to set up the graphics for the next shot. But before I do that, I'm going to get the next caller on the air because the phones are ringing off the hooks. And I'm glad they are because this is the last show for the season. Caller, you're on the air. Attorney Jeff Leving and Les Poole. What can Attorney Poole do for you?
Well, thanks for taking my call. I'm really calling about someone I know and trying to get some insight into this whole situation, which seems a little odd to me. But bottom line is he's the father of a young child. Recently, the mother was incarcerated. He went to court to get some, I guess, parentage rights and paternity court or whatever you call it. And all of a sudden, the grandmother apparently went into court and got an order without any notice to this guy where she got possession of the child. And I don't know, firstly, does the grandmother on the mom's side have any rights to do that? And does she have any rights to do it without any notice to our guy? And what can he do about it?
Well, first of all, there's a superior rights doctrine in Illinois. If you have one viable parent, that viable parent legally trumps the position of a grandparent. If you had a situation that you had neither viable parent, then grandparents' rights would step into play, and there's other grounds with regard to rights as far as grandparents. What he needs to do, first of all, is it would have been a guardianship if there's a legal position that's been set forth with regard to a grandparent. He needs to challenge that, bring a petition to terminate the guardianship in the probate court that entered that, and then likewise file a petition for parental rights in the domestic relations court. So there's an overlap there. There's two courts involved, but clearly if there's nothing wrong with him, I mean, if he's a suitable father, he doesn't have drug issues, or there's no safety issues with regard to the father, and he's an appropriate father, clearly his rights would trump the grandparent. But he needs to take legal action in that regard and challenge it. The quicker he does that, the better it is, because you don't want to establish a status quo. The longer the status quo continues to exist with the grandparent having the custodial rights, and the longer he's not doing anything about it, that's actually working against him. So the quicker he gets into court to challenge that, the better he is. But he would be in a superior position over a grandparent's right position.
Well, thank you, and thank you, caller. Looks like there's another caller, so I have a ton of questions I wanted to ask you, Les, but apparently we have to try and get these callers on the air. Next caller, you're on the air. Jeff Leving, what can Attorney Poole do for you this evening?
I was out of work for 3 years.
Could you speak up a little bit, caller?
Yeah, I was out of work for 3 years, and I fell behind on child support. And I haven't seen my son because my ex now says that I have to pay everything before I get to see him at all. I haven't seen him now for 3 months. Is this right? Can she say that?
No, it's absolutely false. Under Illinois law, the issues with regard to child support and parenting time, which you need or need to increase or enforce, are totally irrelevant to each other. They're two separate situations, and it's not a situation that if for whatever reason you're behind on support, that's any defense or can be used as any device to use against you to impede your other rights to your child, whether it be your son or your daughter. So you need to take steps affirmatively with regard to either enforcement or establishing your parenting rights. Ultimately, if you're in the court, the issues with regard to support can be dealt with if you need to modify something, but there are two separate actions. One does not relate to the other, and it's not a defense to you increasing your parenting time or enforcing your parenting time with your child that you have some arrearage or you've had some financial setback as far as the support goes. So if you did get that advice, that's wrong, and you need to take some actions in your regard to enforce a relationship. You can't get time back once it's gone.
Caller, be real careful as to who you talk to, the advice you get. Les Poole is correct here, but there's so many people out there that just give terrible advice. I spoke to a father who was fearful of litigating for joint custody because he told me a number of years ago that there was no joint custody law in Illinois. I knew that was false because I co-authored the joint custody law. I co-wrote it. So I knew it existed, and here was a father who was told joint custody didn't exist in Illinois back then. So keep one thing in mind, be careful who you talk to and make sure they're qualified.
Absolutely.
Not everybody's as qualified as Les Poole. Make sure they're qualified. It's really, really important.
Or the author of the joint custody statute in Illinois that's seated to my left here.
Yeah, very, very important. And also, since this is the last show, I'd like to thank Ernie Banks, Mr. Cub. It's very sad that he passed, but he was the honorary president of the Fatherhood Educational Institute. The Fatherhood Educational Institute is bringing you Chicago Counterpoint TV, and it's an honor to have worked with Ernie Banks, as he was the very critical and important honorary president of the of the Fatherhood Educational Institute. And here's a nice photo of Ernie Banks with President Obama and Michelle, a fantastic person. And I also appreciate President Obama for supporting responsible fatherhood. And it's hard to get these graphics straightened out because I hope everything isn't crooked here. But I'm trying to get on here a letter President Obama sent me, a very important letter, Fatherhood, supporting my book, How to Be a Good Divorced Dad. And here's the letter. It's difficult to get everything organized with the papers all over the desk here. But this is a letter. It was an honor to receive from President Obama concerning How to Be a Good Divorced Dad, a book that I was very proud to write, and I'm also proud to have served on his National Finance Committee during his second election. So that's very, very important. And also, I have a ton of questions here I'd like to ask.
You also have the
Les
endorsement
Poole.
of Cardinal Bernardine, as I understand from the...
I was very honored to get an endorsement from Cardinal Francis George, and I was very
Oh, okay.
honored. And
Francis
actually,
George.
I had lunch recently with Cardinal Kupich, and also before he was a cardinal, when he was Archbishop, and he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. And this is actually a letter where supporting Cardinal Francis George's endorsement of my book, and very sad when he passed away. But this is the Cardinal's endorsement. Wonderful human being, and I'm glad you brought that up, Les, and I'm glad I had the letter here. But Les, what I'm wondering is, if a mother is not letting a great dad see his child, and we both worked on a very tough case representing a father recently, very tough case, and we had to fight fiercely, but the end result, I believe, protected the child. Very tough case. But what can be done if a mom is engaging in parental alienation, not letting a good dad see his child? Can the police help? I mean, what can he do?
Well, I think you're talking about, there was one extreme case that we're pretty victorious in, and we had a situation where a mother was actually instigating a daughter to file false complaints against the father. So not only was the court, was there concern with regard to these allegations that were being made, the father could have been charged and could have been facing some counteractions. In that particular case, we did some investigation and brought this issue to trial. Ultimately proved to the court that the mother was instigating the child to make false accusations against the father. We actually got an injunction against the mother where she was so toxic in this case that we actually got an injunction that she couldn't have any contact at all with the father. Then when she came through a third party and tried to violate that order, we actually had her jailed at that point. And on top of it, she was about $50,000 in back child support. We actually had her thrown in Cook County Jail, took her $36,000 to get out. Now the father has sole custody, and on top of it, there's an injunction in place that mother can't have any contact. It was an extreme remedy here, but this was an extreme situation that mother was just toxic to the detriment of the child and the child's relationship to the father. And there are appropriate remedies which can be done even in highly extreme situations like that. Somebody needs good counseling, proper counseling, and with good representation, they can prevail in court on a most difficult situation.
Well, thank you, Les, and I'd like to shake your hand on
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Because you saved that dad's life and the child's life, believe me.
That is going to make a difference in that child's life, the rest of her life. It's going to make a difference in the father's life, the rest of his life. My advice to the listeners too is don't sit on your hands with regard to issues that you face like this. The longer it goes, the more the status quo is established, the more it works against you. The quicker you can get some good advice, get some responsible representation, and to get into court with regard to these matters, the decisions that you make and the action you take is going to affect you and your child's relationship the rest of their life. What's more important to you than your child's relationship? The rest of your life and the rest of that child's life. And all the recent studies have shown the more involved the dad in his child's life, the better they do academically, socially, emotionally, and any other way. You need to be involved in your child's life. There's no substitute for that.
And there's no greater joy
Absolutely.
than reuniting a father and child as Les did. And also, there's no greater joy than keeping a man out of jail who's falsely accused. Falsely accused. No greater joy than keeping that man out of jail for a crime he never committed. So, very proud of Les Poole for that great work. And one thing we have to remember is courage is the magic that makes dreams come true.
Don't ever be afraid to take action to protect your relationship and to establish and foster a relationship with your child.
And keep in mind, even though this is the last season, and I hope we can have Les Poole back here next season, I want to thank everybody, the listening audience, for supporting the show, supporting the pursuit of justice, and watching this show every Monday evening to keep it moving and calling in. I appreciate your questions, but we're going to be on hiatus for about 8 weeks. But if you do have questions during this 8-week period, email them, call me. We want to know what you're thinking, or if you want to talk to me on the air. Every Saturday, I'm going to be on Power 92.3 FM at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Saturday. So if you want to get on the air before we're back on the air here, Power 92.3 FM, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Saturday. I'm on with Meha taking legal questions. Now, this is my final show, and I really appreciate all the support for watching it, and especially Les Poole for being my guest on the last show.
My pleasure to be here, championing the rights of fathers and the importance of the life in their child's life.
Okay, so thank you, and I look forward to seeing everybody here, same place, next season, 8 weeks away, but I look forward to it, and God bless.